This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for joining us. As you know, we're broadcasting from Sydney, Australia, which is a place that is right now devastated and utterly heartbroken after this Islamist terror attack against Jews on the first night of Hanukkah on Bondi Beach. As innocent people gathered on a balmy Sunday evening to celebrate light, love and life at what should be one of the safest places on earth, Jews were gunned down in cold blood, and hundreds of others, locals and tourists, had to run for their lives. There is so much heartbreak and so much anger right now. If only there were warning signs. There were plenty of them and they were ignored. For the last 2 years, anti-Semitism has been escalating out of control in this country. On October 8, 2023, activists chanted "F the Jews" on the steps of the Sydney Opera House. Just a few months ago, extremists and plenty of useful idiots marched along the Sydney Harbour Bridge where anti-Semitic chants, "River to the sea, death to the IDF," were chanted loudly by many, as several protesters held up terror symbols as well as posters of terrorists. For more than 2 years, here in Australia, Jews have been targeted. Synagogues have been burned, homes have been vandalised. Messages such as "Killed the Jews" have been spray painted on walls, while left-wing activists and social media personalities have been using their profiles to demonise Zionists. Australia's Special Envoy to Combat Anti-Semitism, Gillian Segal, handed down her report with a plan to combat anti-Semitism back in July. The Albanese government has been sitting on it, not bothering to implement it, or certainly not enough of it, while Jews here in Australia have been fearing for the worst. And now 15 innocent people, including a 10-year-old girl named Matilda, they have been killed in the most senseless, horrific way. Now, shortly after the news broke of a deadly shooting at Bondi Beach, I went to the scene and spoke with many people who were still traumatised after running for their lives and witnessing people being murdered right next to them. Here is part of my conversation with one woman who still had blood on her dress when she spoke to me.
And suddenly I just started to hear all the gunshots and people are flying in the air in front of me. Couldn't believe it. I thought it's like it's a joke. Terrified. I didn't know where my son was, and I saw my mother. I was calling her and she didn't answer.
And she was one of the lucky ones. She survived. We are mourning the loss of 15 innocent people. A colleague of ours here at Sky News, Ricky Studensky, is mourning the loss of his friend, known as the Bondi Rabbi, Rabbi Eli Schlanger.
Pretty heartbroken at the moment. I think it's a shock to see that someone you know very closely and always told you to show the best of Judaism to people is gone. It's a man that I was close with, Eli Schlanger and his family, or the Rabbi Ullman's family as well. They were part of. He was the son-in-law. It was to see him gone all of a sudden. I was shocked because this is such an innocent man who dedicated his life to actually being peaceful, bringing other Jews closer to Judaism and being a good person. And seeing someone like that is very, very hard. There's no words to describe it.
I also spoke with Rabbi Eli Schlanger's father-in-law, Rabbi Ullman.
We are family, all family, and despite the fact that the grief of one person is the grief of a second, there's an outpour of love today, for my grief, and the same thing goes to everybody else's. The Jewish people are a family, and one feels the pain of the other. And as impossible as it may seem at the moment, we get through it. Because we have no choice.
I also spoke with his close friend, Rabbi Eli Feldman.
He was someone who just cared for everyone. He didn't, whether you were the richest or the poorest or the mightiest or the lowest, it didn't matter. He just saw a holy soul.
And he was like a brother to you?
Like a brother.
I mean, how are there words to describe the type of pain that you must be in?
It's not about me. He's got a grieving widow.
Thousands of people have been making their way to Bondi Beach to lay flowers, say prayers, shed tears and light candles as we process this act of evil on Bondi Beach and, of course, honour those killed.
The more we persecuted, the stronger we are. That's why we've survived thousands of years from Egypt's days. And we will always, you know, we say as Jews, one life is a whole world, and each person who died, is everybody. You know, for a rabbi, a good man who has 5 children, a little baby, to be gunned down in cold blood, and so many others. It's not. Yeah. I was at Bondi yesterday swimming, having the time of my life, and this happens in the same spot. I'm sorry.
Plenty of people in Bondi proudly wearing and waving the Israeli flag, also with a message to our leaders that they have failed the Jewish community.
We believe that the government has not
shown initiative.
Yeah, shown initiative and stood up and...
If October the 8th, if they had stopped that at the Opera House, if they had stopped, this wouldn't have happened. We need to show strong leadership. Penny Wong didn't even go to October the 7th sites when she was there. That is a disgrace. If you represent our country, you've got to see both sides. It's a disgrace. We need new leadership, and we need to see change right away. Otherwise, this will happen again and again. It's enough.
If when you see graffiti saying kill the Jews, and when we firebomb people's cars in Wallara, and when we light synagogues on fire, like, yeah, you're all safe, and we're sending more police out. But yeah, unfortunately, I've felt like this was going to happen, and I am like, just come on.
Funeral preparations are right now underway. We are mourning the loss of 15 innocent people, including Rabbi Eli Schlanger, a Holocaust survivor, Alex Kleitman, who survived the Holocaust but did not survive the Bondi massacre, and of course the youngest victim in this tragedy, 10-year-old Matilda. Her family has given Sky News permission to share this video that was taken the afternoon that she was killed. Our hearts are with the Jewish community and all of those whose loved ones were killed. May their memory be a blessing. Joining us now is Brittany Hopper, independent journalist. Brittany, thank you so much for your time. I want to get your thoughts on the global response to this evil terror attack, to Islamist terrorists gunning down innocent Jews in Sydney, Australia, at our iconic Bondi Beach. We are so heartbroken. But as I mentioned earlier, the warnings were there. We have weak leaders running this country. Here is Donald Trump's message following the attack.
And that was an anti-Semitic attack, obviously. And I just want to pay my respects to everybody, but to Australia and the Prime Minister, to everybody that we know so well, we get along with so well. We have a great relationship. That's a terrible situation going on over there. Think of that.
And Trump's ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, has blasted our Prime Minister Anthony Albanese for his initial response to the attack. He wrote, "This disgraceful statement from Australia's Prime Minister never mentioned it was a jihadist attack on Jews on the first day of Hanukkah. Hope he's ashamed of anti-Semitic statements past year." I mean, Brittany, you're on the other side of the world and you've been seeing this rise in anti-Semitism taking place here in Australia. We have leaders who have ignored calls to take action against anti-Semitism. It's so frustrating. It's really hard to hear their thoughts and prayers right now. Can I get your thoughts from Florida?
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts. On one hand, as you mentioned, a TV journalist, and so I've been in the media for so many years telling these stories. But on a personal level, I'm Jewish and I'm raising a Jewish daughter. So this hits so close to home for me. This particular community, the Chabad community, I was born and raised with and under their teachings. And I can tell you firsthand that they are some of the warmest, kindest humans on this planet who literally their life's mission is to spread light and kindness and happiness to all, not just Jews, but to everyone around the world. So the fact that these particular people were targeted, it's just so unbelievably sad. I mean, when anyone is targeted, right? Any group is targeted like this, but we are seeing more and more of the Jewish people being targeted. And yes, as you mentioned, the prime minister, the Australian government, they had been warned. And for some reason, we cannot figure it out, nothing was being done. Until now, we have one of the worst terrorist attacks that happened in that country. So, I don't know what is going on, but we can only look at what is happening in the UK, in Europe, in Canada, in Australia, and they all have a common denominator. So what's next? What is it going to take?
Brittany, I couldn't agree with you anymore. I mean, I am in awe of the strength and resilience of the Jewish community, and my heart goes out to every person, no matter where they are in the world, that has been impacted by this horrific attack. Let's just play Trump's advisor here, Leo Terrell. He was on Fox News earlier.
Overwhelmingly, most of the world recognises a two-state solution as being the way forward in the Middle East.
Leo, what do you think about that?
Let me be as clear as possible. He is wrong. There's no two-state solution coming out of this Trump administration or the State Department. He is wrong. Martha, that's called appeasement. It didn't work in 1939. It never works.
I think Anthony Albanese has a lot of explaining to do, the way he has ignored the Jewish community here in Australia for so long. And it's very difficult. Brittany, as a journalist, I also want to get your thoughts on what you make of the media's response to this attack. Some outlets were very slow to call this out for what it is, an Islamist terror attack against Jews. One of the gunmen allegedly had an Islamic State flag in his car. Some social media personalities are all of a sudden acting surprised that this attack has taken place after they were celebrating and encouraging some of these hate marches that have taken place, like on our Sydney Harbour Bridge. Some of these podcasters have been demonising Israel, demonising Zionists, certainly ignoring the safety concerns of Jews at home. What's your assessment of the media's coverage so far and what you've noticed in how this has been reported?
So it's twofold here because we have a much larger battle against us because, sure, ABC News, for instance, their headline for hours, even after it was known that it was a terrorist attack against Jewish people at a Hanukkah festival, even after it was well known and stated by authorities and confirmed, ABC News did not disclose that in their headlines. It wasn't until deep down into the story you had to click it and see and read, oh, Jewish people were targeted. It was a Hanukkah event. Now, the other part to this, though, that we are heavily up against is the social media. What we're seeing on TikTok, what we're seeing on X, what we're seeing on Instagram. I mean, comments that this was a false flag, comments that this was actually Israel who did this. I can assure you, as a representative of the Jewish people and community, there is no way we are killing our own. We don't even kill anyone else. Thou shalt not kill. That's what we live by. But yet at the same time, we have these radical Islamists that believe it when they say it, they want to kill. And I'm not talking about all Muslims here. And I want to make this point because there are some good Muslims. And as we saw, the hero who actually helped divert this terrorist. But these are radical Islamists that we are talking about. And again, there's a common denominator here. I don't see radical Christians, radical Catholicists, or Catholics, radical Mormons, radical Jews going around and blowing themselves up to try and kill as many people as possible. And time again, this is what we keep seeing. And as far as the two-state solution, how can you live next to a country their entire ideology is to kill and wipe out the country next to them? How are you supposed to live in peace with these people? And it's not just the Jews, guys. It's not just us. We're being targeted right now, but don't think for a second that anyone who has Western values or Western ideologies, that you're not next.
And we really need to have this conversation, I think, here in Australia, that if there are people here who do not uphold Australian values of safety, of kindness, of faith, they should not be here. We are still processing this horrific attack. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has also blasted Anthony Albanese, labelling him a weak leader and really laying into him for failing to stamp out rising anti-Semitism.
Your government did nothing to stop the spread of anti-Semitism in Australia. You did nothing to curb the cancer cells that were growing inside your country. You took no action. You let the disease spread. And the result is the horrific attacks on Jews we saw today. We saw an action of a brave man, turns out a Muslim brave man, and I salute him, that stopped one of these terrorists from killing innocent Jews. But it requires the action of your government, which you're not taking. And you have to, because history will not forgive hesitation and weakness. It will honor action and strength. That's what Israel expects of each of your governments in the West and elsewhere, because the disease spreads and it will consume you as well. But we are worrying right now about our people, our safety, and we do not remain silent. We fight those who try to annihilate us.
Brittany, I've been spending a lot of time with people in the Jewish community over the last 48 hours, incredible people, as you say, that many of them say they are, of course, shocked, horrified by what has taken place, but they were not at all surprised. There are, of course, still real fears that this could happen again. Can I get your thoughts on what Netanyahu had to say and his comments to Anthony Albanese?
Right. Well, of course, I agree with everything that he had to say. He was spot on. Unfortunately, these cancer cells, these terror cells that he was talking about, how many more are out there? I mean, let's really think about it. This was just one that happened. There is constant planning going on, and it's a combination of government not taking it seriously, but also mainstream media, social media allowing these lies and conspiracy theories being spread, and this hatred being spread, and it's not stopping. And so these people are justifying the Jewish population being targeted right now, which is sickening. It is sickening. And I don't know if it's going to stop anytime soon. However, I will say the Jewish people have been targeted for thousands of years. And there's always been a group of people who have wanted to wipe us out. And yet we still come back stronger, kinder, and continue to spread the light that we were born and taught by God to spread.
And it is amazing, and you certainly keep spreading it. So do so many people in that community, and I'm witnessing it. The only way to fight darkness is with light and spreading light. Brittany, I want to get to this story in LA, where federal authorities say they disrupted a terrorist threat, arresting 4 alleged members of a pro-Palestinian extremist group who were accused of planning coordinated New Year's Eve bombings in LA. The FBI told Fox News Digital that members of this self-identified part of a radical offshoot of the Turtle Island Liberation Front, an extremist group motivated by pro-Palestinian and anti-government ideology. According to the FBI, they were allegedly planning coordinated bombing attacks on New Year's Eve using improvised explosive devices, targeting 5 separate locations across LA, a place that you used to live. Well done to the FBI for catching this. Brittany, can I get your reaction? Is there anything more you can tell us about this?
Yeah, I mean, I was born and raised out here. It hits home very closely, obviously. Los Angeles is a very, very large area. It's not like New York City. It's not like Sydney, Australia. It's not like some of these cities in these bigger countries. It's very wide, and I can now understand how there was going to be potentially 5 different areas where this was going to happen. It's horrifying. It's frightening. The entire world should be on edge right now. It's not just Los Angeles. It's not just Sydney, Australia. It's not just, all of these other places. We're seeing in Paris, they just canceled New Year's Eve plans. We're seeing a lot of people step up, because I think that like I said previously, there's more to come. A lot of these planned terrorist attacks are being thwarted, thank God. However, it's inevitable that something is going to happen, whether it's in our country, your country, the UK, over in Europe, in Canada, something else will happen, unfortunately. And there is a common denominator of who the culprits are.
Extremist. Brittany Popper, independent journalist, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and sharing your light here on Power Hour, and always being such an amazing contributor. Thank you so much. Sending lots of love to you and your community.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Joining us now is James Morrow, Sky News host and Daily Telegraph National Affairs editor. James, thank you so much for your time.
Great to be here on the set with you here on the Power Hour.
I just wish it was under different circumstances,
yes,
considering what we're going to be talking about. But it is so great to have you here on set, this new set of ours. But it's been revealed one of the gunmen was known to ASIO, and his father had 6 firearms. So it's been revealed that ASIO examined gunman Naveed Akram 6 years ago over his close ties to a Sydney-based Islamic State terrorism cell. He's right now in hospital under police guard. It's been revealed also that 2 ISIS flags were found in their car at Bondi Beach. James, certainly plenty of concerns that ASIO knew about this person years ago.
And not only that, we've also reported that both father and son spent time in the Philippines recently. Now, in the south of the Philippines, there is an Islamic insurgency, and there are known to be terror training camps. So that is going to be another avenue of investigation. Look, this whole thing, besides the horror of the tragedy and the event and the shooting and everything that's led up to it, there are huge questions that need to be answered about what happened with our security services. What happened with, for example, the people who are supposed to be in charge of the gun laws that say, if someone at your address has been red flagged by ASIO, you're not getting a gun. All of this stuff where Anthony Albanese is talking about restricting firearms even further. No, I'm sorry. This is a distraction from a great deal of failures around laws that already exist. Don't let the Prime Minister get away with this. We now know so much about what these people who are alleged to have done this did and have been associated with. This is a failure of immigration services. This was a failure of law enforcement. And, this is a failure of the Albanese government because they have not funded ASIO properly. ASIO has been warning that they need more money to do the job. There are a huge number of threats out there, real threats, and then Albanese goes out there and tries to distract with, oh, it's the gun laws. I saw him last night on TV saying, oh, and also there's that right-wing extreme out there.
Oh my gosh.
No, I'm sorry. This is anti-Semitism that developed on his watch. This is Islamism, which was allowed to go unchecked on his watch, and he is attempting to distract from this real reality here.
It really is. And we've all been witnessing the horrific rise of anti-Semitism here. We've seen synagogues being burnt down. We've seen anti-Semitic graffiti. We've seen homes targeted. We've seen Jews being targeted and terrorised for years. And now this has happened. And some people are acting surprised. As you alluded to, I think the conversation needs to be about some dangerous ideologies that exist here. People who are in the country who don't want to uphold Australian values, they should not be here, in my opinion. Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke was heckled at Bondi Beach. Let's just take a look.
This is your fault. Blood on your hands, Tony Burke. Shame, Tony Burke, shame. Shame on you.
I mean, there is so much anger, and I think...
pretty understandable.
Absolutely.
Pretty understandable. I mean, you think about the way this government responded after the October 7th attacks in 2023. It has always been weak. It has always been this sort of both sidesing sort of thing. There were preachers in Tony Burke's electorate who were going out and saying the most outrageous sort of things, and there was very little condemnation there. Every talk of anti-Semitism was also met with, and also Islamophobia, this recognition of Palestine, the Harbour Bridge March, which was allowed to go ahead. You had, on the Harbour Bridge, you had people carrying placards of the supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah. You had them carrying ISIS flags. You had them carrying flags that were just this side of looking like a Hezbollah flag, but not actually, to stay on the right side of the law. This was all allowed to go ahead. This was tacitly encouraged. And of course, you had the, what were they, 47 or 49 recommendations of Gillian Siegel's report into anti-Semitism. Again, not dealt with, none of them accepted. And here we are. I mean, no one is surprised. I have been talking very closely to the Jewish community for more than 2 years about this. They have all said this is where this will lead, and this government has been so pathetic and so attempting to, maintain this fiction of multiculturalism and allowed this anti-Semitism to fester out of control. I'm not shocked. I'm not surprised. I'm greatly saddened. But Tony Burke, I mean, yeah, I can see why people are mad.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more there, James. It's horrific. I mean, the biggest concern for the past 2 years among the Jewish community is that there would be a death, and now this has happened.
Tony Burke, let's not forget, Tony Burke was the guy who signed off on saying, hey, let's bring in 3,000 Gazans. What kind of message does that send?
And as you spoke about earlier, the anti-Semitism report, I mean, the Albanese government is just sitting on that, not in any rush to implement it. Yeah. James, I actually want to talk to you about the social media ban that came into effect last week in Australia, the world first social media ban for under 16s. On Sunday night, as this terror attack was unfolding, social media was critical in terms of communication. New South Wales Police were using it to communicate with the community to stay away from Bondi, to keep them informed about what was going on. Some of my friends were using it to update their friends and family members that they were safe, and also using it to offer up their homes if people needed refuge, if they needed somewhere to go and hide. But this social media ban for under 16s, how is this going to help those who are under 16 who are normally glued to their phones in a time of crisis?
Well, it's really interesting you talk about that. And that, I think, is one of the unintended consequences of this ban that hasn't been thought through. But I'd also go further than that and say that this actually is something there's a bigger problem that also stems from before this. And this is the attempt by the E-Safety Commissioner to block anything that might be considered, distressing content, because they don't want people to essentially maybe think things that the government doesn't want them to think, or become angry about something that the government doesn't want them to be angry about. It all gets down to this whole idea that the state is restricting the free flow of information, even disturbing information, and that has consequences. And I think the one you've just highlighted is a really real one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, I've noticed some of the left-wing activists who were happy to share pretty horrific, vile posts on social media that were going viral, demonising Israel, horrific stuff about the IDF. All those sorts of posts were happily shared and reshared, and then all of a sudden this attack takes place. And these left-wing activists are saying, stay off your phone, stay off social media, don't watch the vision.
Well, this is really interesting, because they're saying this because what they're trying to do here is they're trying to police what people think and what people feel about this. You see so many people who were demonizing Zionists, or Zios, as they like to call them, demonizing Israel, posting content that could only be considered anti-Semitic, doxing people who were Jewish, trying to get businesses shut down. All sorts of insane 1930s Germany kind of stuff here. Really shocking. Oh, my heart grieves for the Jewish community, these people are saying. Now, I don't buy this one bit. But also, what they want people to do is not see the consequences of the environment that they created and helped fan the fuel of, that then leads to this point where you have people shooting Jews, hunting them down on Sydney's most iconic beach. And I'll tell you what, it is 8 kilometers as the crow flies from the Sydney Opera House to Bondi Beach, but it's been 2 years and 3 months in the making, that journey of hate.
And on that point, Johnny Bishan had a brilliant commentary piece in The Australian. He said, now they're shocked. The progressive activists, the influencers, the Greens, the podcasters, all those impeccably right-on people who've spent 2 years making Zionists, or Zio, the dirtiest word in the Australian vocabulary, who marched down Oxford Street during the Mardi Gras holding a sign that said, globalise the Intifada. Well done, congratulations, the Intifada is here, mission accomplished. He also writes about the hypocrisy that we're seeing right now. I mean, Green Senator Maureen Faruqi saying that my thoughts are with the Jewish community, at the same community whose state is rogue apparently and genocidal. Abby Chatfield is apparently heartbroken and sickened by the anti-Semitic attack, despite refusing to platform Zionists on her podcasts and despite publicly shaming a person as a genocide supporter. I mean, hearing from them
like,
now.
there's so much to unpack there. I mean, the Greens, which by the way got comprehensively rinsed at the last election, in large part because they went from a nice party that cared about, furry, cuddly things and turned into a party that wanted to, run this crazy anti-Israel foreign policy. And people just said, hang on, what's wrong with you guys? Is everything okay at home? To, the whole thing, there was a huge fight about the Mardi Gras and, Queers for Palestine, all this. Like, this is the Mardi Gras here. This is a celebration of gay culture, and they are taking the side of the Palestinians. Explain to me how that works. Well, I can tell you how that works, actually, because we have seen for a long time, and this has been going on for decades and decades and decades, this weird thing where the progressive hard left and revolutionary Islamists team up together. Now, it never ends well, but the progressive left never learns this. The same thing happened in Iran in 1979 in the Iranian Revolution. They thought, oh, it's so wonderful, we got rid of the terrible Shah, and then they wind up with the Ayatollah, and then they're all dead or having to leave the country. This is the exact same thing being played out again. This dynamic, was encouraged, I think, by labor to bring these people together as a political force against, the terrible hard right. We hate the right, but we can bring these people into the tent. Because, as they say, there's no enemies to the left.
James Morrow, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. Great to get your insights.
Anytime.
Joining us now is Joel Burney, Executive Manager at the Australia, Israel and Jewish Affairs Council. Joel, thank you so much for your time. Our hearts are with the Jewish community. There is so much anger right now that innocent Jews were gunned down at Bondi Beach. They were murdered because of their faith. How does the community come to terms with this?
Well, it's just, we just don't know the answer to that question right now, Gabriella. You and I have spoken so many times over the past 2 years about the clear and present danger that our community was in. We connected it directly with the hate speech that spewed onto the streets of Melbourne and Sydney so immediately after the massacre itself on October 7, 2023, but was allowed to keep going on and on and on and escalating, where the hate speech on the streets became acts of vandalism on Jewish installations and buildings that then escalated to fire bombings of cars and houses, that escalated to fire bombings of synagogues with congregants in it and burning them to the ground. And still, the authorities and the leadership couldn't grapple with the problem, couldn't admit that the problem was as acute and as bad as what it was, and couldn't put enough resources in to stop this horrific event from happening. And through all the warnings, and through all the meetings, and through all the pleading with federal and state government and authorities to do more to protect us, to stop the pro-Palestinian marches in the streets of Melbourne and Sydney and allowing them to spew their hatred, false claims of genocide, false claims of war crimes. These false claims and the attack on Zionists, death to the IDF and all Zionists are terrorists. This campaign to dehumanize Jewish people led these two terrorists to go out on a Sunday afternoon in our country, in the heart of our country, Bondi Beach. It's not just a Jewish area, Gabriella. It's the essence and the postcard of what we are as a nation and who we are as a people. And they came there, coupled with all of the cover that they had, knowing that since 2 years ago when the angry mobs were yelling and screaming and chanting, "Where's the Jews?" and "F the Jews" on the steps of the Opera House in full view of New South Wales police, they were all aware that this was allowed. This was okay. We're not targeting Australians. We're asking everyone to get out of the way. We're only targeting the Jews, the Zionists, the dehuman. Enough is enough.
Joel, we've seen the horrific rise in anti-Semitism. Could this have been prevented?
This, of course, could be prevented. I watched the Prime Minister's press conference yesterday, very, very prepared, listing all the things that he had done. Well, I say to Mr. Prime Minister Albanese that I've got a list that happens to be twice as long as yours as to the things that you chose not to do, or a 3 times as long list of the things that you should not have said in the context of the war in Gaza, or an even longer list of things that you should have done to clamp down against the hateful rhetoric, against sustained hateful rhetoric against the Jewish people for the past 2 years. And you can say whatever you like, and we can be emotional about it, we could be political about it, but let's just brush that to the side. The Prime Minister lists all the things that he had done yesterday, but 15 innocent people are dead, Gabriella. 15 people are dead on his watch, and he thought that the best thing that he could do was go out and list the things that he has done. However long your list is, Mr. Albanese, it falls short. It falls short of the expectation of the Australian Jewish community. It falls short to the expectation of the wider Australian community. And it falls short for those 15 innocent people who were butchered just because they were Jewish. The Prime Minister wants to claim that he's done enough in the context of all of that. Well, that's something that I would find very, very hard to comment further on.
Joel, he's making the conversation now about gun reform. Is that enough? Is that really the only part of this conversation? Obviously, it's early into the investigation, but it's very clear that this was an attack against Jews. Is it just gun reform that needs to be looked into?
Absolutely not. And everyone sees it for what it is an issue that needs to be looked at. Of course, we need to look into why someone living in metropolitan Sydney needs to have a legal license to carry 6 assault weapons. We need to look into that. There's no doubt about that. But to pivot this politically and to attempt to shine a very bright light on gun reform, to shift the conversation there and move it from the ills of his own government in being unable to stamp out this anti-Semitism, this toxin of anti-Semitism in our country, that will fail, Gabriella. And I will tell you why it will fail. It will fail now because the silent majority that we Jews felt existed in this great country of ours will hopefully, and what we've seen over the past 48 hours, will cease to be silent. What I saw with the droves of people that came out to Bondi Beach to lay flowers in solidarity with the victims, to I saw the amount of people lining up to blood banks in Sydney and Melbourne offering to give up their blood, and that dear man who was able to disarm one of the terrorists, a Syrian Muslim person of Sydney, who saved countless lives. That is the Australian, that is the Australia that I know. That is the Australia that I remember. And that is the Australia that I hope that we all remember and cherish, and we do everything in our power, regardless of the ineptitude or the vacuum of political leadership at a federal and state level. It is up to Australians, regular Aussies, coming together in a time like this to say, enough. We won't tolerate it anymore. We don't want to see it on our streets anymore. We don't want kids and Jewish people precluded from going into public spaces. We don't want Jewish creatives doxxed. We don't want people calling for death to the IDF and all Zionists are terrorists. Enough is enough. To all those people who have spewed their hatred, to all the Greens politicians who kept calling these false claims of genocide, child killers and murderers, and painting us all with the same brush and making us all collectively responsible for what was going on in a horrific war many, many thousands of kilometers away. Where is your culpability in all of this? Where is your responsibility in all this? And when you come back and you point fingers at me to say that you had no idea, well, yes, you did. And you know why you did? Because the Australian Jewish community told you so. We told you that your rhetoric and your positions on Israel were causing hatred to be filled and spewed onto the streets against Jews. We told you that there was no purity in the pro-Palestinian marchers who were not protesting for the freedom of the Palestinian people, because if they were, they'd be protesting against Hamas and Hamas leadership and the imprisonment that Hamas has put them under. But no, Gabriella, that wasn't the message. The message was about finding and hunting down the Jews. And nobody should be surprised with this terrible outcome. So where to from here? I have full faith that unfortunately it took just such a horrific event with such a huge amount of innocent loss of life that it jolts that silent majority to hold hands with your Jewish brothers and sisters, to link arms as one people in Australia to say enough is enough. We will not allow this any further.
Joel Burney, incredibly well said. It is up to all of us as Australians to stamp out anti-Semitism. Thank you so much for speaking with us today. We really appreciate it, and our hearts are with you.
Thank you. Thank you as always.
Joining us now is Michelle Stevenson, Bondi Ward Councillor at Waverley Council. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How are you? I mean, this is just so horrific what's happened in Bondi.
It really is horrific, and I'm trying really hard to hold it together because it's not about me. It is about the people in my community and what they're going through. But it is overwhelming. I mean, this community is so close-knit, and we are really feeling it at the moment, if I'm going to be honest, really feeling it. But what I'm loving is that everyone's coming together in hope and in grief, but also with love.
Absolutely. We are seeing such a huge outpouring of love. We're seeing people laying flowers, writing notes, saying prayers, lighting candles, and sending so much love to the Jewish community at this time. I want to get your thoughts on you know, how the community is doing, how we've seen volunteers, we've seen shop owners coping with a terrorist attack for the very first time. But one of the silver linings in this horrific, evil attack is the acts of bravery that we have seen. And I think one of the most incredible moments was when we witnessed this hero, a Muslim man by the name Ahmed Al-Ahmed, who tackled one of the gunmen who was opening fire. Let's just look at this.
Oh! C'est un malade. Oh non, gros! Oh! Ouais, mais il y a son pote, il va se faire tirer dessus. Il est trop con, le mec qui a l'arme.
Just incredible. I mean, what a hero, saving lives in that moment.
Absolutely, and this kind of speaks to the very heart of what being an Australian is. It's about really jumping in and trying to save your fellow man in a really tough situation. I mean, we are thankful that we had people like him on site at that time. The Bondi lifeguards as well, I have to say, they did an incredible job, our surf lifesavers. I just spoke to local business owner of the surf lifesaving school, and she said they had, you know, the surfers in there with boards carrying people, and, you know, they were trying to save people who were doing surfing lessons. There were bullets going past, and everyone was just jumping in to help everyone else. And that, to me, speaks volumes about what our community really is about at its core and what Australians really are about.
Absolutely, and that's what makes us so proud to be Australians. We are so proud that Bondi is normally such a safe place.
Yep.
And I think that's why we are so rattled. I mean, I've been speaking to people who were there. Initially, people thought it was fireworks that were going off. They couldn't imagine that it would be gunshots at Bondi Beach. How are the shop owners holding up? I mean, I was speaking to a few yesterday, naturally in tears. I don't know how to cope with something like this. We've never experienced anything like this.
No, absolutely. And I know they're really trying to take care and be mindful of their young employees, particularly around the mental health piece, you know, especially in the lead up to Christmas. The businesses are doing okay. Look, I've been fielding phone calls. They're asking me, should we open? What should we do? I think at the end of the day, a lot of them were closed yesterday out of respect, which I think is really lovely. But, you know, people are starting to open up, and I think that that's important. People need spaces where they can come together, particularly restaurants, cafes, bars. People want to come together. They want to sit there. They want to discuss with their fellow community members. So I think that's really important. There are also some that are still in that kind of conflict zone who can't open up yet.
Yeah.
And you know, they're being patient, they understand. But I did kind of assure them that hopefully there'll be some financial assistance. I know Anthony Albanese did announce that there would be. So hopefully he follows through with that.
And I suppose looking ahead, it's really how we heal from this. And I think seeing the community come together, rally amongst one another, lay flowers, shed tears together, support one another in any way that they could. I mean, the amount of people that have been showing up and just going to Bondi Beach to pay their respects to those who were killed says so much about how we look after one another moving forward. And also Premier Chris Minns paying a tribute to the Opera House. The Opera House was lit up last night, signifying the religious holiday of Hanukkah. 2 lit candles representing the second day of the holiday period. I mean, there's so much solidarity for the Jewish community, which is so important right now.
Absolutely, and Chris Minns has been a really good leader in this space. I do have to give him props in this because, you know, he's been really strong when the anti-Semitism has ramped up. He's been there and he has really called it out, and I really do appreciate that. I think no matter what side of the political divide you are on, if you are there and you are supporting our Jewish community, then you are a strong ally, and I think that that's important. And we really need to be rallying around our Jewish community at the moment.
Absolutely.
Because they have been living in fear since October 7th, and they have felt neglected and they have felt like no one has been listening. I've been listening. I know other members of my team have been listening, and I know that other leaders have been listening, but unfortunately it's been falling on deaf ears, I think, at a federal level.
Absolutely. Michelle Stevenson, thank you so much.
Thank you.